The second reason, though, is public funding. Since 1974, we've had public funding scheme for presidential elections. There's primary public funding and there's general election public funding. Well, the amount of money available for general election public funding is $84 million, which is, of course, woefully inadequate to run a nationwide general election campaign. So if you shorten the general election period, obviously that money goes further. That's simply another reason to have a convention in September nominating the candidate, and you only need to spend that money for 60 days. Now, what about the primary election thing? There's been kind of a counter trend, hasn't there? That is states trying to get earlier and having moving their primary up so that the result is the likelihood that you may settle on a nominee early in the process. Well, the last major candidate for president to accept primary election funding was Senator Bob Dole in 1996. And of course the problem is that he became the presumptive nominee in March of that year and was also out of money. The current money available is $54 million, woefully inadequate to run primary campaigns throughout the country. So here he is in March of 1996, the nominee and no money, and going to be nominated by the party in August. Well, at that time, the Republican National Committee could and did step in because it had tens of millions of dollars of soft money that they could use to promote, to fill the gap, to promote Senator Dole during this interim period. But of course, McCain-Feingold has now stripped the party of the National Party of any soft money, so that is no longer an option. Well, the primary election funding then has ended up since 1996 to be for people like John Edwards, who is sitting right now in his 28,000 square foot house in the hills of Tennessee, waiting for his check from the taxpayers of the United States to pay the debt that he has in his presidential campaign. It is for Al Sharpton, who flew around the country, stayed in five-star hotels and ate at swanky restaurants on the taxpayers using public funding while he was not paying his own business taxes. Or it's for Lyndon LaRue, who ran for President of the United States from federal prison using public funds. And where have the LaRues gone since then? I don't know. So it has been for those people until this year, and that is until John McCain, because it is also for candidates who need a lifeline. Now, that happened to John McCain. In 2007, he entered that year as the leader for the nomination for Republican president. Of course, he saw his lead evaporate until he hit rock bottom in December of 2007 when he applied for public funding. He then unexpectedly and quite dramatically won the New Hampshire primary, won South Carolina, won Florida, and became the presumptive nominee, and in that process decided, because he had not taken public funding, that he would withdraw. However, the FEC has said that they must approve his withdrawal. Now, what's the problem with that? Well, the FEC is made up of 6 commissioners, 3 Republicans and 3 Democrats, and there's only 2 commissioners sitting at the Federal Election Commission. Now, what has happened is, beginning in the fall of last year, the Senate Democrats, including in a hold by Barack Obama, have refused to confirm the nominees, the bipartisan nominees that President Bush has nominated. The Democrats telling Bush who to nominate for the Democrat seats, and the Republicans picking the ones that they would pick. And of course, the Democrats have been doing that because they want to select the Republican nominees. Well, you can imagine a Federal Election Commission that had 6 Democrats and no Republicans, or even 5 or 4 Democrats and no Republicans. But that is exactly the plan of the Senate Democrats, so they have blocked the nomination. Now, that was kind of taken care of by recess appointments before December of 2004, but something changed. And that is, for the first time in the history of the United States, the Senate didn't recess in December of 2007 and had a completely bogus plan, which was to stay in session by having Senator Webb show up on the Senate floor each day for a 30-second statement, and then he returns back to Virginia. That prevented any recess appointments that would have allowed the commission to operate, because the commission cannot do anything without 4 affirmative votes in favor. Well, here's Senator McCain. There's no commission to approve his withdrawal from public funding because of Democrat obstructionism, and there is no commission to approve his request, if he makes it, for general election funding to fund his campaign if he seeks it after the convention. Well, could you imagine what would be said if Republican senators were blocking Clinton's appointments to the EPA, and we would have an EPA that couldn't go out there and protect our environment because they didn't have sufficient votes? There would be howls of outrage. Well, there are no howls of outrage today. I mean, we have a federal election commission which everyone claimed, including the Washington Post and the New York Times, was all about protecting the people from corrupt politicians, but we have no cops on the block. And we have no howls of outrage about no cops on the block. And I think the bottom line is simply this: that justification for McCain-Feingold all along was a lie. It is not true that it was necessary, because McCain-Feingold does not lay one finger on any incumbent politician. But it is all about protecting incumbents' reelection and seeking partisan political advantage. In other words, the old Washington game.
Thank you, Jim Bob. Mr. Levy.
Thank you. Well, I was asked to talk about the judges issue, and since the topic of this panel has to do with the election, I'm going to start off with the role of the judges issue in this election. And when I say judges issue, I guess I should clarify, I mean both the battle over specific nominees to the Supreme Court and the lower federal courts. And if time permits, I can go into the current battles that are going on over that. Of course, the obstruction of Bush's judicial nominees is just one example of Democratic obstruction. As Mr. Bopp pointed out, Obama has been obstructing Hans von Spakovsky because he had the nerve to help defend voter ID programs when he was in the Justice Department. Thus, one would imagine, one should really call it a conflict of interest. Obama's preventing his opponent from getting FEC funding or being released from the requirement to seek his own funding. But in any case, I digress. And then in addition to the current obstruction that's going on, when I say judges issue, I mean the debate about the proper role of judges. My organization, the Committee for Justice, believes that the proper judicial philosophy is strict and objective construction of the Constitution and statutes, rather than the creative obstruction that we see in judicial activism, guided by, to quote Obama's recent words, the judge's moral bearings, that the judge should bring his moral bearings to weigh. Well, if the judge was a legislator, then he should. But as a judge, he's not supposed to let, whether he thinks the law is fair or unfair, he's supposed to enforce the law. I'll use the term conservative judges as a shorthand for strict constructionists, but I'm referring to conservative and judicial philosophy. I think the judges issue is poised to be a very big issue in this election cycle for a few reasons. One is just the large number of looming Supreme Court vacancies, roughly 2 to 4 that the next president will get to appoint. So the direction of the court is very much at stake in the presidential election and the Senate races, since the senators have to confirm whoever the president appoints.